Good morning. Good morning, guys. Hi there. Thanks for joining me here today. My name is Adrienne Bradley, and I'm so happy to be back. I was on a bit of a hiatus for the last couple of weeks and couldn't wait to get back live. But you know what it's like to have a bunch of things going on and schedule conflicts and everything. But I'm back today live. So, again, thanks for joining me. I've got my laptop open over here just in case so I can see if make sure I don't miss anything in the chat and make sure I'm not missing anyone who joins us. But okay, so if you're joining me here for the first time, welcome. And if you are coming back, welcome back. As I said, my name is Adrienne Bradley, and I am the host of the Daycare Q&A Show and the founder of Thriving Childcare. And I'm so glad that you're joining me here today. Today is April 3rd, 2024, and this is episode 34 of the Daycare Q&A Show. So we got lots to get into today, so I'm going to get through some housekeeping and then we'll get right to some questions. But yes, so I usually start off by saying I put my dogs outside, but they've been pretty quiet during the show, well, the last few shows, so I didn't worry about it today. But if they do get started, I don't want you to be startled, because they will startle me, but they're inside. And okay, I always start the show by giving a bit of a disclaimer and saying that anything we discuss here is, the questions that are addressed here and the advice that I give are from my own experience, and they're based on either something I've gone through or something someone close to me has gone through, and so I base what I say and the advice that I give on that. But your business is your business, and if it doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't pertain to you or your business, please feel free to disregard it. We're just here, the show is just here to give you maybe a different perspective. Should you be going through something or go through something in the future, or maybe you've gone through it in the past and you wish that you'd handled it a different way, maybe getting a different perspective from me or another provider that is here with us will help you manage those issues in your own business. So that's what we're here for. But again, if it doesn't work for you, disregard. So just take what works and leave the rest. Okay? Yeah. So there's that. Let's see. And I want to remind you, if you are joining me live and you have a question, I will do my best to answer it here. Go ahead and put it in the chat or the comments. Even if you're watching this on replay, put it in the comments, and I will come back later and answer. But if you are joining me live and you have a question, put it in the chat, and I will do my best to address it while we're on here today. Okay? Let's see. And lastly, if you have to leave early, the replay does live here on Facebook, on our page, until we upload it over onto the YouTube channel. I have been getting better about uploading some of past shows, but we do have quite a few shows that are on the channel over there that you can kind of binge watch. I would love it if you did that, and if you do, please leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode, and if there's anything that you'd like to us to address here on the show, I would love to hear it. So go ahead and check that out. But if you do have to leave early today, you can always come back this week and watch the replay here on our page on Facebook. Okay? All right. So let's see. Let's see what's going on in the Thriving Childcare universe. So today I've got some really exciting news, and I'm just going to preview it right here. But today's show is actually sponsored by the Rise and Thrive Club, which is our members-only community for childcare providers. And I'll get a little bit more detail in just a minute. But yeah, our show is sponsored by the Rise and Thrive Club today. Okay, so last week I was interviewed on the Childcare Director's Chair by Erica Shikosio. That's her podcast. And we talked about the many ways that childcare owners, whether you're home-based or center-based, can use AI for our childcare businesses. So I will come back and link to that episode of her podcast. I have so much fun talking about the uses of AI, and Erica's show is amazing. So I'm so thankful that she had me on. I was actually her first guest. She typically does, well, she hasn't had guests in the past, but she made me her first guest. So I was so super honored to be on her podcast. So I will come back and I will link to it here so you can go over and listen to that episode. Okay. And talking about the topic of AI, we're going to get into that in the questions here today. So yeah, so it'll be right on par with that. All right, so let's see. This week on the blog, like I said, I am the creator and the author of the Thriving Childcare blog. I wrote about a spring cleaning for your childcare business. Now, I'm not talking about physically cleaning the childcare, although everybody thinks of spring as a time to do some spring cleaning. As you can see, I have stacks of papers on my desk that I need to handle and clean up. But that's not necessarily what the post is about. The post goes into other things that we can refresh and renew in this time of spring. I mean, this week, Monday, was the first day of April. You know that. It was also April Fool's Day, but it was also the first day of a new quarter. So we are now in Q2 of 2024, and it's time to maybe reflect on and review some things that may or may not be working in our business, and maybe think about doing something new. But in the post, I go into, it's actually inspired by a piece I saw on the Today Show where they talked about different things that you can clean up in your life during the springtime. So I talk about cleaning up your digital things like your phone, getting rid of documents and old things that are on your computer that might be slow. If you're anything like me, they're slowing your computer down, and doing that type of cleaning for your business. So it's a quick read. You can actually listen to it. The audio's there. We now have audio on our blog post as well, so you can go over and listen to it maybe at nap time or something like that, and check out the many things that you can address for spring cleaning in your business. And it is actually a really good idea, because I know I don't take the time to do some of these things throughout the year, and like I just said, my computer is super slow, and it's just because it's bogged down with videos and pictures and some things that I haven't touched in years. And so we need to make the time to go over and do this type of spring cleaning, not only in our physical environments, but also, in our routines, maybe our workout routines, and like I said, our digital life. So go over and check that out. I believe I put the link in the show notes already, but if I didn't, I will come back after the show and I'll leave you the link to that blog post. I also created a free challenge that will make the process easier. So go over and check that out. You can join the challenge, and it'll walk you through every day how to easily do this type of spring cleaning for your business. Okay? All right. Now, I alluded to a few moments ago, but I have some thrilling news to share. So this week we reopened our Rise and Thrive Club. It actually was previously called the Not Just for New Providers Club, and that name was very long. And it was just time for, like I just said, a refresh and a whole new perspective. I loved doing that. So I asked you in the childcare community for suggestions for a name, and we chose this name, Rise and Thrive, because it exemplifies what we try to do here is to elevate childcare providers and to help them grow, start and grow thriving businesses. So we reopened the membership, the club this week, and it is a place where you can go to find resources like courses and workshops and forums and expert webinars. We have some expert webinars slated for this month, and I'll be sharing with you every month, every week here on the show, who will be coming into the club and giving a webinar that week. This week we're just starting off with the grand opening, or the grand reopening, and the spring cleaning challenge. But next week, stay tuned, because we have quite a few guest and expert presenters coming into the club. So I will be giving you a lot more updates on that. So I'll come back and I'll put a link in the post, in the show notes for today's show, where you can go over and get more information on how you can join us in this very unique and supportive environment. And I would love it if you did. So I'll come back and I'll leave a link. I'm going to be leaving a lot of links today. Okay, so this morning we're going to get into a few questions that are submitted by childcare owners. But before we do that, every show, I start the show by going through all that I just went through, but also checking out our planner. That is the Stripe version behind us of the Provider Planner and Organizer, and looking to see if there are any special fun observances this week that we can take advantage of, maybe create a curriculum or project, or even a fun snack meal to help celebrate. So let's see. So we know that the first was April Fool's Day. I don't know if you do anything about that. But that was the Monday. And then yesterday was National Peanut Butter and Jelly Day. I don't know that it's bad that we missed that. I know that a lot of children have peanut allergies, and a lot of environments are just peanut free. And so that was yesterday, so that's gone anyway, so don't worry about it. But today, which is the 3rd of April, is actually National Find a Rainbow Day. That sounds like fun. Now you could, of course, when you're outside, see if you can find a rainbow. You may or may not be able to, but that would be a fun project, either with paint or crayons, to have the kids do a project to create a rainbow and talk about what a rainbow is and the colors in the rainbow. That would be cool. Okay, so yeah, so let's see. Next week, well, I think we'll save these for next week, because yeah. So, one more. The first Saturday in April, which will be this Saturday, is National Love Your Children's Day. That's cool. That's really cool. So why not pass that along to your clients and maybe give them some suggestions on some things that they can maybe do with their children over the weekend. If you're tapped into events that are happening in your community, maybe you can share those things with them to help them celebrate National Love Your Children's Day. I think that is really cool. So yeah, all right. So let's get into the questions. I'm so excited about getting back to this, but I usually start off with a question of my own, and I put this on the page and in some of the California groups, because technically this is a California issue at the moment, but eventually they said that it might wind up being a national thing here in the United States. So it may or may not be something that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get over here to the page and make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay. Hi, Denitra. Sorry, I didn't see you. I didn't see you come in. Denitra Scott is joining us. Good morning. So, so this issue right now is for California, but it might become a nationwide thing. So I asked, do you think you will need to raise your staff pay now that the minimum wage is $20? So to clarify, I live in California, so like I said, this is a Californian thing so far. And to be honest, the $20 minimum wage is technically for fast food chains that have over 60 locations nationwide. So we're talking about big businesses like McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and all these, probably, what is it, Chick-fil-A, these big organizations or businesses that have several locations. But the thing about it is it directly affects businesses that are not necessarily fast food, because when you see a higher rate of pay go up in one industry, when you think about the workers that staff other industries, that can be a draw for them because of the higher wages, right? So I asked in several of the California groups that I'm in what they thought. I asked this question, and I was really heartened to see. I thought that they would be very discouraged by thinking that they may have to compete with a $20 an hour wage, and that they would lose their staff because they didn't feel like they could afford that. And actually, I was very surprised to see that a lot of providers are paying that, and some paying more. One provider stated that it was well worth her not having to continue to find staff by offering them this higher wage. I probably don't need to tell you, but in California the cost of living is very high, and due to that fact, this law went into effect. And so a lot of the providers are saying that they're already doing that. They're already at a competitive salary for their assistants or their teachers in their centers, because they realize the value of retaining good staff, and not having the constant turnover, the need for constantly onboarding, the need for constantly trying to find good staff for their business. And I thought that was great. But I want to ask you, what do you think about that? Do you think it will have a major impact on what we pay our assistants, especially here in California, but even if you're outside of California? Do you feel like if something similar were to happen in your area, how you think it might impact your business? So please come back in the comments or the chat and let me know what your thoughts are about that. Denitra, what do you think about the $20 an hour minimum wage for, to clarify, fast food workers? How do you think it'll impact our industry? How do you think it will affect owners, childcare owners? Let me know, and I'll let you know when she pops in, and if she has a response to that. All right, so let's get into the questions that were submitted by other childcare providers like us. Let's see, I'm gonna just check the chat real quick. Okay, all right, we're good. All right, the first question says, hey Adrienne, I I've had my childcare business for over 10 years, even before I had my own kids. But now my kids are all in school, and although I've loved the experience of owning and running my own childcare business, I'm ready to be done with that. But I make good money with my business, and so I'm afraid that if I pivot, I may not make as much as I have in the past. So I'm really not sure what to do. Should I just continue with my business and just cut my hours so that they more align with my life now, or do something new altogether, which is what I really want to do. I really didn't prepare for this, so I'm feeling a little stuck. Okay, so I can appreciate this. Hi, Deborah Hurley. Hi, thanks for joining me. So before I get to this question, Denitra Scott said regarding the minimum wages, she says, I don't think it will impact us. However, effects will be the same: layoffs, more automations, and price hikes. Yeah, I've actually seen a lot of more automation in a lot of the stores that I shop at. I went to Home Depot, was it last week? I think it was last week. And this location, there were no tellers, or cashiers, I guess. There were no cashiers. You did not have an option. You had to self-checkout. At least I didn't see any. I saw the one counter that was just for the contractors, but I didn't see any other cashiers that were for the general public. I had to self-check out. So I think you're right. Now, in our industry, of course, you can't really automate the functions or most of the functions that we do in our business. But I agree with you. Denitra. We'll probably see the effects of it more and more in our daily life. I have something else to add to that a little bit later about how it will affect us, and maybe it should in a way, but I'll get to that in a minute. Deborah Hurley says, I think it would be fine because we're already raised market rates here, so it shouldn't impact a lot of us. It shouldn't impact us a lot. I totally agree. Most of us, we'd become used to it by now. Prices since the pandemic have gone up seriously. I don't even want to tell you what it's like to leave my home on a weekend and go out and try and run some errands and need to get gas. I am shocked. I am just shocked. And then on the news last week, they were saying that in downtown LA, there was a gas station and it was $7 a gallon. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, it's going to get to the point where we're going to have to take public transit at least part of the time, because it's getting to be prohibitive. And there's no more joyriding or driving all over the city. I kind of, for years, have made myself a kind of a roadmap so that I could do things in a circle and not be going here and there and wasting gas. So, I mean, it's crazy. It is really, really crazy. All right. So let me get to the question. So this provider, just to recap, she's had her business for 10 years or more, and sounds like she started the business to be home with her children, but now her children are in school, and she's loved having the business, but she's ready to do something else, but she's concerned about the income dropping if she pivots to do something else. All right. Well, I just want to say, first of all, I can relate. I can totally relate. And I don't know if I've ever said this here on the show, so this might be news, but I closed my childcare in, I believe, 2021. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 2021. I'm trying to remember. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've lost the ability to negotiate time and space as a pandemic. I lost years. I literally, some of that is foggy to me. I don't remember a lot of it. I mean, because it was just so out of the ordinary, right? But anyway, so I closed my business in 2021, and I won't lie, I had been anticipating doing that for a while before, and had wanted to do it for a while before that. But with the onset of the pandemic and all of the things that we had to deal with when it came to running our childcares during that period of time, especially when we're talking about before the vaccinations and any kind of protections, it was time, I felt, for me to close up shop. And like I said, it wasn't something that I hadn't been planning to do. I had been planning to do it, but I was not completely financially well planned to do that. So I can understand, because it can be a big difference. It can be scary. It can be scary taking a leap like that. And she didn't give her name here, so I can't address her directly by name, but I know that a lot of providers probably are faced with this issue. They may want to get out, but they don't feel like there's any way out because of the income that the business is bringing in, that they're accustomed to, that they need. So I just want to let you know that I can definitely identify with that. I do have a spouse who works outside of the home, so my business wasn't our complete income. But whether you have that or not, if you're running a successful childcare business, or even if you don't feel like it's hugely successful, it is still adding most probably to the household income. I did write about this on the blog, and I will come back and leave a link to that post. I believe the post name was "I Want to Quit, How Do I Get Out?" or something like that. I can't think of the name of the post right now, but I will come back and leave a link to that so you can check that out. But what I want to say is, for those of you who are in the situation now, and maybe for some of you that want to plan for that, maybe just like this provider, you got into childcare because your children were at home and you want to spend time with them, and this became a way for you to create a business and an income and feel the need for you to be with your children, your young children. But now that's changed. And anyone who's in that situation, you can anticipate that at some point it will change, and then you will need to pick up your children from school. Maybe they'll have some after school activities or different things, or you want to transition to something else. I would say the best course of action is to plan for it. I told you a moment ago, I don't feel like I planned enough for it, but any plan is better than no plan. So I would say if you have a similar situation, which is how you came into the business, or even if you didn't come into the business that way. I didn't come into the business having young children at home. That wasn't my scenario. And so I think that I didn't really plan enough for the future. What I was going to want to do. Did I want to remain forever? And how long is forever? Okay? Is it in 20 years? Is it 10 years like this provider? Is it 5 years? What is the time period? Some of us, a lot of us, I know, and I will tell you, I was one of them. I didn't come in with a well laid out plan for my childcare business. And one of the, I'll tell you in a second, I have a tool that will definitely help you either step back and go through that exercise of creating a plan, or if you're just getting into the business, develop a plan that will help you achieve the goals that you have for your business and for your future. I'll get into that in a second. But what I want to say is develop a plan, okay? If you want to get out right now, what is your plan? If you need to replace an income, how are you going to do that? Spend some time. I mean, I'm not giving you all the answers because everybody's an individual. I'm not telling you what you should do, but sit down and take some time to brainstorm. How could you replace that income? What do you want to do? Maybe you have some ideas and maybe you don't, but spend some time thinking about it instead of feeling like you're trapped, okay? Getting sometimes resentful of your business, because anybody who feels trapped in something is gonna start to feel resentful and take the joy away from their business. And it could be that you still have a passion and a joy for running your childcare business, but take some time and think about the future. And is this something that you see yourself doing for many, many years? And even with that, where is the end point? I have a family member that is an elderly woman that is still doing her childcare business, and I don't believe it's because she wants to. She's at a point in her life where, she probably struggles to handle all of the responsibilities of her business, but she feels like she has to. And I paid close attention to that, and I would advise you to do the same. And just if even if you want to stay for 20 or 30 years, okay, plan that out. What does that look like? Are you going to spend some time developing a retirement fund, which you should? Are you going to think about maybe a second career, another chapter in your life? For me, starting Thriving Childcare was another chapter in my life, and I wanted to start that. I wanted to start that new book. So spend some time planning it out. I don't want you to feel like you're stuck, because there are other things you can do. There may be some sacrifices that you have to make, maybe financially, maybe initially. But if you don't ever make a plan, then you can't hope to be successful with either making that change or doing something else that you want to do. Now I want to go to the comments and see what you have to say. Let's see. Deborah. I hate this thing because it jumps around. I'm going to go over here. Let me see if I can see better over here. What is wrong with this thing? Oh. Okay. No. Okay. That's not working either. Okay. Deborah Hurley says gas is going up according to news outlets. So where she is, gas is going up too. Yeah, it's probably going up across the nation. And they tell us, every year when we get closer and closer to summer, we're supposed to expect it to go up. Here, at least in California, they say something about the summer blend or something like that. I don't know how much. What does it matter? It's going to go up, right? And she said, I think a high-paying job may not be enough, but you may need to cut back on things you do and pay for to find a job that you love to do outside daycare. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I meant, Deborah, that you might need to make some sacrifices. And, if you start developing a plan, you might see where there's room to make maybe those sacrifices, okay? Yes, it would be nice to continue to remain at that income level, but maybe there's some things that would allow you to take a pay cut and still maintain your lifestyle and still not impact you as much. Deborah says, sometimes providers need to step out of the business for a while, but some come back and reopen after a while. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing. I do believe that we've seen that since the pandemic. There were some providers that didn't have a choice. Maybe they had elderly parents that were living with them, and the thought of continuing their childcare business during the pandemic, especially when there were no protections, was too much of a health risk for their family members, right? So they had to stop running their business. Now, I do believe, just like Deborah was saying, that some of them have come back to the profession. So it could be that you come back to the profession after you step away for a while. Again, this is about creating a plan that works for you, works for what your life is like. And I want to talk about work-life balance, because I believe a lot of it, and we've got another question that will also relate to this, but some of that inability for us to create a work-life balance that actually works for us, and is not just a catchphrase, can lead to the reason why we want to exit stage left. Creating that work-life balance is really crucial to you maintaining whatever business you're running or working. You need that, and I think a lot of us realized how much we need that during the pandemic years. So just like Deborah said, it could be that maybe you step away. And then something that this provider said, and then I'm going to move on to the next question, but this provider said that should she perhaps continue the business but maybe cut her hours so that they align better with her life now. That's another option. I told you I was just on the podcast with Erica Zuccogio, the Childcare Director's Chair, and she's going to come on and talk more about a topic that I've been wanting to get into for a while, which is different business models for your childcare business. And I cannot wait to dig into this, and I'm really going to set a timeline for when this happens, because I think so many things are happening in our industry now, in our particular niche, that we need to figure out some strategies for. And one of the strategies that I've shared here on the show is that I've seen different business models throughout my tenure, and it didn't ever occur to me when I was running my business, especially in the beginning, that I could have created a different business model. It didn't have to be the standard business model, which is for parents that work 9 to 5 or whatever. That was something my husband suggested when I started my business, and because I had been a working parent, I understood, and I think I limited myself, right? I thought, yeah, that's what's necessary, that's what's needed. Not all the time. I told you about going up and visiting my daughter in San Francisco, and a woman who was her landlord had a childcare business that she ran out of her home, and her business model was so unique to me. I hadn't seen anything like it. I remember my daughter telling me that the kids arrived around 8 or 9, and they were all leaving about 1 o'clock, and so there were no naps. At best, it was breakfast and lunch. Maybe a snack, probably not, because lunch. And then they all went home to take naps. And not only that, this woman's business was closed on Fridays. Now, will that model work for every community or every childcare business? Absolutely not. But for the demographic of that business, it was a winning model. So it's something we're going to get into, because that's another option. But if you know that down the road this is something that you're going to want to transition from, you do need to make a plan for it. So I will lean on that heavily. Okay, so let's get to the next question. I know that took a minute to get through that, but I know a lot of us are feeling this, and we don't have a plan, and we don't know what we would do. and we feel stuck because of all that we just discussed. So I will come back and leave a link to that blog post. We will be talking about a lot of things that relate to this in the coming episodes. But let me get on to the second question. So the second question is, how do you cope with parents that just can't seem to stick to your guidelines? I'm not talking about big stuff like late payments or picking up your kids, their kids past closing time. I mean little stuffs like sneaking in toys, snacks, or forgetting to send their kid with a jacket. How do you handle that? Okay, now, I'm going to go hard. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm going to say my viewpoint is this. You have these, you want to say, policies, rules, guidelines for a reason. And I think it's human nature for people to test you. And if you're acquiescing on the small stuff, if you're giving in on these little small things that don't seem to be a big deal, I believe it's human nature for them to challenge you on the other things as well. I don't see that as a stretch. I'm going to trust you as a child care provider, business owner, that you set whatever policies you have in place for a reason. I know I did. Now, revisit that. I was talking to a group of women that I'm training now, and I was going over something similar. And they couldn't understand why I was being so harsh. And I was like, well, here's the thing. A lot of the rules, policies, guidelines that you probably have in your childcare business are mandated in the first place by your licensing authority, all right, in some form or fashion. Now, let me address this question. Okay, let's say toys, right? Well, in my childcare, when I was running my childcare, I had, like a lot of us, children that are at different ages and stages. So I'm not comfortable with children bringing in toys that may be a hazard for one of the children. That's one. Number two, and this is probably the biggest thing, is this. I would explain to the parents that a child bringing in a toy from home, they know that's their toy, meaning they're not always likely to want to share that toy. So you can imagine the conflict that might cause or present in this environment, right? Whereas all the toys that I have, all of them can play with because they're my toys and I'm sharing them with them. So just and the fact that she said sneaking in the toys, so they obviously know that this is your policy, but they don't want to take the hard line with their child, and I get it. But they're not going to be able to bring the toys to school. So it might be something that you want to discuss with the parents, to maybe have the conversation that toys are for home. These are your toys. These are your toys. The toys that are at Miss Adrian's are everyone's toys. And maybe that's how you can help the parent deal with the issue. Snacks, same thing. You don't know if if something's gonna come in that you can't. What do you want to say? Manage. You know what I mean? And just like I was talking about it being peanut butter and jelly day yesterday, with the peanut allergies and whatnot. I had to make sure that there weren't things that other children in care that were allergic to. So I'm gonna say, for me, I would have these conversations with the parents. Now, are your policies written out? Are the parents aware of the policies? Do you have a parent handbook? If you don't have a handbook, do you have it listed on your website? Do you have a resource for the parent so that they can refer to it, so they can remember what the policies are related to this? I would use my newsletter to reiterate some of these policies, because I'm not going to lie, I forget a lot of things, and this is not their business, so I didn't expect them to remember everything about my business and every single detail. Okay, it's kind of unreasonable to think that they would. So it's okay if I reminded them. And I believe at the tours I would state as much. I'm going to remind you about certain policies from now and again. Now and again, I'm going to remind you, so that they understand that, you know, there's reasoning that they may not realize why these things are in place. Okay, but as long as you do, and you aren't the first one to break your policy by allowing things that are outside of your policies, I think that's a good thing. Now, I'm going to go to chat. I saw some responses. Let's see. Deborah, let's see. Deborah Hurley says, I have a 3-strike sheet. Each time they violate a contract rule, it is signed and filed. I offer a sit down to go over parts of the contract for each violation, but the 3rd violation is termination. Girl, you are someone who's after my own heart. I know that might sound harsh to somebody, but look, like I said before, it is probably human nature for people to try things. They might not even think that they're trying it. I don't know. Some people are malicious, and some people just are not really paying attention. But what Deborah's doing with this 3-strike sheet is 2 things. And I promised myself I was going to do something similar, Deborah, and I never did it. I said, and I remember talking to a colleague and asking for her help with this, and I said, listen, if I mention a situation here at the Childcare that I've gone through with a parent or a family repeatedly, can you call it to my attention? Because that means there's an issue. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, which is the whole reason why this show exists, when you're in the thick of it, you can't really think clearly. And you can't remember that you just had an issue with this family, or you just had this, you know what I mean? And what Deborah's done by putting in a procedure for managing those violations, it's calling it to both the violator, the parents, I know that sounds hard, it's calling it to their attention, but it's also reminding you, like she said, 3 strikes. It's reminding you that there seems to be a communication problem or a compliance problem, a boundaries problem, however you want to look at it, okay? And it's calling it to both of your attention. And by her having a procedure for handling it, she can be consistent with the way she handles it, and it cannot hopefully get to the point where she's burnt out and upset and you know, all the things. So I love that, Deborah. She also says some sneak in choking hazards like coins, etc. It's a struggle. Exactly. That's what I mean. It might not seem a big deal to them because they're just thinking about their child. I totally get it. However, we as the provider and the child care owner have to think about the child's safety, the other children's safety, everyone's safety. We have to think about liability. You just do. And if you're not, you're really in danger zone. So these are some of the things. So setting a policy, a hard and fast policy on some of this is a way to, we're not going to sit down and figure out on every single time this comes up if this can go or if that can. No. We're going to say, let's keep the toys at home or in their car. Tell them to keep it in their car. That's something I remember saying to parents too. Deborah says, it's a stressful job and you don't need more issues and stress. Absolutely. Trust me, after the first violation, they read the handbook. I bet they do. That was another thing. Remember I was telling you episodes ago about my whole tuition thing? I'm telling you, the first time I hit them with some late fees, about their tuitions being late, I didn't have to do it anymore. I didn't have to do it anymore. So my thing is, let them know what the policies are, follow the policies yourself, refer them back to the policies, or put in place something like what Deborah has here, how it will be dealt with. And you can put that in your handbook. You can say, hey, look, if there are multiple violations of this, I mean, you can explain it to them. I have to maintain a certain environment as per the state of California. Okay? If there are things happening that are making that challenging for me, i.e. violations, then this is how this is going to go down. This is how this is going to be handled. Okay? They won't be bringing the toys and things to school. So, it's follow through. Enforce your own policies. And I have a couple of resources on the blog that will help you with that. I talk about how to enforce your policies. I also talk about the violators of your policies. So I'll come back and I'll leave a couple of links to those posts, because I think they would really help. Because a lot of times, even us, we don't realize what it can cause. I'll tell you one other thing, and then I'll get to the last question here. But I had a period of time where I had a number of infants, or that were small enough to be in car seats, right? And a lot of times, the parents switch off. One will drop off and one will pick up, right? And they didn't have 2 car seats. So they would want to leave the car seats. Well, it got to the point where my whole foyer was full of car seats. And I had to come up with a policy to say, I'm sorry, you guys, we can't have this. It was a tripping hazard for me and the kids. It was just a mess. And I was like, no, I can't. And some of these things are going to be unique to your business, and I get it. The parents might think, well, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be like that. You have every right to run your business the way you need to run your business, to stay compliant, to be efficient. You have every right to do that. So there's just a side note. But I'm sorry, I would do just what Deborah did. I would set a procedure in place for how to handle the violators, okay? And, yeah. So, let me get to the last question before we run out of time. Okay, sis. How would you word this? I have a child that is not a good fit for my program. Let's see, what did she say? She usually cares for 2 and up. This child is, I guess, under the age of 2. She wants to write an email message to basically, I guess, terminate, and to maybe explain some things that have been going on at the childcare. She says the child has slapped her and the other children. They're pulling their hair and clothes. It's not funny, I'm sorry. Screaming, throwing tantrums, even with redirection, and they throw the food on the floor, eat crayons. There's a lot going on. So, here's the thing. I know that even with us addressing these things on the show, in the moment, it can be really hard to compose that type of email, letter, notice, however you want to think of it, to a parent without being overly emotional, being in your emotions about it, and, not being as professional as you might want to be. Which is why I was saying earlier that I talked on Erica's podcast about the ways to use AI, and when we were talking about different automations in different industries, we're going to start seeing more of that. In our industry, there are some specific things that would be super helpful to use AI. I probably don't need to tell you what AI is. It is artificial intelligence, and our Echo Dots, our phones already utilize those things. When you go and ask online for a recommendation for a restaurant or something, that is artificial intelligence. They're looking at where you're located. They're looking at the type of food, or when you see ads that come up with things that specifically you would be interested in. They're using this artificial intelligence to pull together data to present to you. Okay, we can use that same artificial intelligence to help us with tasks like this. So what I did was I took the words, or what she wanted reworded, and I took it to artificial intelligence, and it came up with this. And I'll maybe screenshot this and I'll put it in the comments so you can see what it came up with. But it says, important update regarding your child's enrollment. And it says, I wanted to reach out to you about something important regarding your child's enrollment in my childcare program. As you know, I typically care for children age 2 and up, but I made an exception and welcomed your little one, who will officially be a toddler next month, into the program. However, since your child joined us, we've encountered some challenges that I feel it's important to discuss. Your child has been exhibiting behaviors that are not conducive to a positive learning environment. This includes slapping me and 2 other children, pulling hair and clothes, throwing tantrums when redirected, and engaging in concerning eating habits such as throwing food and crayons. Additionally, your child has been consistently attempting to leave the childcare area. It has become, which possesses a safety risk for both themselves and others. I've tried my best to address and manage these behaviors, but unfortunately, it has become clear that your child is not a good fit for my program at this time. After careful consideration and the well-being of all the children in mind, I've made the difficult decision to terminate your child's enrollment in my childcare business, effective date, and it leaves space for the date. I understand that this may come as a surprise, but I am more than willing to discuss this further if you have questions or concerns. Thank you for your understanding and cooperation in this matter. Best regards. Within seconds of putting in the information that I wanted to convey in an email or text or however this is going to be delivered, the artificial intelligence platform was able to come back with something like that was void of personal inputs, but addressed the issues, was professional, was still compassionate to a certain degree, empathetic, and all of that within seconds. There's no way that I could have come up with that or anything close to that if I was in this situation in the moment. It would take me some time, and I'll be quite honest with you, that I've had those moments, and because I couldn't get out of my head about it, I would put it off because I knew I needed space and time to calm down, to address the issue without being confrontational, without feeling taken advantage, all of that, all of those emotions. But this would have allowed me to address it in real time, not to have to delay it, not to have to reconsider it, not to forget, all of that. So I just want to tell you that I have been talking to many people in our industry about different ways to use artificial intelligence ethically to help us better run our business more efficiently. And we do have a resource. It's called what's it called? It's called AI for Childcare Business. I just drew a blank. AI for Childcare Business. And in this course, I show you how to set up on the different platforms and basic prompts to use, how to talk to the artificial intelligence so that you get back something that sounds like it is an actual correspondence from a human and not a robot, okay? Because for me, I use artificial intelligence as sort of like an assistant, okay? So it helps me formulate my words, put things in a concise order, all of that. So it makes sense and it flows, and that it doesn't have the emotions, but it allows me to respond in real time what I really want to convey. So I'll come back and I'll leave a link to that resource here in the show notes so you can go and check it out. But if you've been hearing about AI and all the evils that it can do and bring to different industries, excuse me, I just want you to know that there are ways to use it for our benefit, for the good, and I can show you how. Let me go to the comments here. Let's see. Deborah Hurley says, that she never writes an email in the moment. Yikes. Yes. Wait till the end of the day after you cool off from the day. And Denisha says, wow, AI is a game changer for sure. It actually is. And see, the thing about it is, Deborah, I would cool off and cool down, and I didn't want to think about it anymore, okay? And I would forget. I would definitely forget how I felt in the moment, which took some sting out of the whole situation. And then I would be like, well, it wasn't so bad, or I justify it like that, and it wouldn't get handled. Now, this sounds like she's dealing with sort of a nightmarish situation with all of the things going on that involve the other children and whatnot, so she probably wouldn't forget. But this allows you to handle it within 5 minutes. You can write this and send it off, or have it, you can even schedule it. I schedule a lot of my emails to be sent at different times. You could do something like that. I don't know if I've talked to you before about, and Deborah and Denitra sound pretty savvy, so they probably do a lot of things like this, and they've been running their businesses for years. But I would deliver my enrollment packet through the email. Years and years and years ago, I'm sure a lot of you can relate, I would print all that material off, only to have them decide not to enroll. And now I'm really upset because I used all that ink and paper excuse me, and they're not even going to enroll, and they're not going to bring the paperwork back so I can use it for another family. So I thought about it years ago, a better way to handle that situation. And see, sometimes it's just you sitting down and trying to figure out, how could I better handle this? And then going and finding the tools to help you put that in place. And using AI in these type of situations, it can also help you develop systems, or policies, like we were talking about earlier. I could go to it and say, I want to develop a policy for, like Deborah said, I want to develop a three strikes procedure or policy for violations of our rules and procedures. The AI will not only give you back results in a nanosecond, but if you talk to it and interact with it the right way and ask it for what you really need. And I mean, there's technique to this, okay? Then you will get back something that may even make you look more professional, okay? So, like I said, I'll come back and I'll leave a link to all these different resources that you can have. I want to invite you again to come into the membership. And the Rise and Thrive Club is a great environment to be supported in your business, to know how to handle. Maybe you might need somebody to remind you that you have a policy like this, or I know somebody who reminded me one time and said, "Well, Adrian, you've addressed this already." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I had." But we do so much stuff we forget, and I know I forget. So the Rise and Thrive Club is a great environment to feel supported, to find those resources, to get training, level up your business. So I really want you to come over and check it out, okay? Deborah and Denitra, thank you so much for joining me here today. I know we went a little long, but I knew my first week back after a little while, we had a lot to talk about. But yeah, I'm gonna some of these subjects we are gonna continue on future episodes. But I want to thank you for joining me. That is all for the questions for this week. Again, if you have any other questions that you'd like us to address here on the show, or you want to ask me, go ahead and leave it in the comments, and I will come back and answer your questions as soon as I see it. Remember, you can submit a question early, so that even if you can't make the show, we can address it here. You can just go to thrivingchildcare.com/what's your question. That's thrivingchildcare.com/what's your question, and leave your question for next week's show. And again, my name is Adrienne Bradley, your host for the Daycare Q&A Show, and I can't wait to continue this incredible journey with you all next week. Until then, keep thriving. See you next week.